Okay, so this is just a quick video for the Savage Worlds Fantasy Skirmish Kickstarter, just really explaining how quick it is to work through a battle turn. Obviously, there's lots of rules around that. There's lots of rules around battle setup and unit creation and so on. But this is really just a very, very quick run through of a couple of battle turns.
Okay, and so for this basic demonstration, we're going to look at just a couple of units. So here we've got some lesser goblin slaves, and they're being opposed by some human foot knights. Now the lesser goblin slaves are seasoned, so they're reasonably experienced, and the human foot knights are novice. However, this is a relatively unequal battle still, because the lesser goblin slaves are the cheap unit for the goblinoids. They're not really very good, whereas the human foot knights are the signature unit for the humans, and they are rather good. So despite the fact that the goblins are more experienced, I think this is going to be an easy win for the humans, but we will see. So, like in every Savage Worlds round, we start by drawing an action card for each unit. So we get 7 of spades for the goblins, and we put that down next to them, and we get a 9 of clubs for the humans. So although neither of those are brilliant cards, it means the humans do go first. And if there were any edges like a quick or level-headed, they would apply in this situation as well. Now, the second phase is the recovery phase. I'm not going to mention that too much at the moment, because I'll do that when we start the second round. There's nothing to recover from at this stage. So next, we do the actions. So we act in order of the cards, highest to lowest, as ever. And human knights have a move of 6, and you can see that they're only about 4 inches apart, so we've got plenty of movement to engage there in base-to-base contact. So now that we're in contact, the human knights can attack the goblins. Now the human knights have a fighting of d8, so we'll put a d8 there, and because it's a unit, we also roll a wild dice. So we have our d8 and our d6. The parry for the goblins, being seasoned, is 6. So that's actually a miss. Now, for the purpose of the demonstration, I obviously need a hit. There we go. So I'm just going to re-roll that. There we go. For the purposes of that, I've spent 2 bennies to get a hit. So that's 6 hits, but then the wild dice was a 6 and rolls up to, explodes with another 2, so that's a total of 8. So we hit, but we don't hit with a raise, so we don't do any additional damage. Now the human knights are armed with a longsword, which is 2d8 damage. Because we didn't hit with a raise, it is just 2d8. So we roll our damage there, which is 11 total. But because there are 10 members of the unit of the foot knights, we add another 10 to that. So that's a total of 21 damage. Now the goblins only have toughness 3 and 1 armor. That's a total of 4. So we reduce our 21 damage by 4 to 17. Okay. And now comes the only slightly complicated bit of the process, which is working out what that translates to in terms of actual damage. So freeze, for our big battle for the weekend, I have put it actually on the screen up there. And you can see 16 to 19, it says 3 shaken, 2 wounded. So we've done quite a lot of damage to these goblins. So we take off 2 of them, they're wounded, they're out of the battle now, unless someone casts the healing spell. 3 more of them are shaken. So they are laid down, because they are, although they're still part of the unit and they still move with the unit, they're unable to take any part in actions until they've recovered. So that's the humans' turn done. That was quite effective. Now it's the turn of the slaves. They, being seasoned, have a fighting of d8. And so they also roll a d8 and a d6. However, the parry of the humans is 9 because of their large shields, or in part because of their large shields. So the goblins get a 6. Oh, and another 6. And another 6. And a 5. That's 23. Well, that beats the parry of 9 by quite some way, so we get a raise. Now, the lesser goblins have only got short swords, which do strength plus d6. And their strength is only d4. So we do d4 plus d6 plus another d6 for the raise. So we roll these 3. We've got a 3, 8, 9. So we've got a total of 9 damage. And there are 5 members of the unit still fighting. So that totals 14. The humans have toughness 5 and 3 from chainmail for a total of 8. So we do 6 damage to the humans. And when we look on our screen again, we can see that 6 is 1 shaken, 1 wounded. So 1 of the human knights is wounded, 1 is shaken. Okay. That is the end of their turns. So they've both had their action, and that is the end of their turns. Obviously, if we had more units on the battlefield, they would all be taking their turns as well. Now, the morale rules kick in when you lose a quarter, a half, or 3/4 of your unit. Now, with a unit of 10, that means that when you lose 3, 5, or 8, you have to make a morale roll. The humans have only lost 1, the goblins have lost 2. So neither of them yet have to make a morale roll, because although the goblins also have 3 shaken, there's only 2 wounded. So no morale roll is needed on either side. Okay, on to round 2. So our humans are still fighting the goblins. First thing we do is our action cards. We've got a 9 of hearts, we've got a jack of clubs. So the humans will go first in their action. But first we have to get to the recovery phase. Now, if there was any morale here, if there was a unit running away, this is when it would try and see if it regains control. It's when it tries to shake off spell effects. It's when it tries to recover shaker models. So the goblins have to roll their spirit, and they have a d6 spirit, and they also roll a wild dice. That's a good roll. So that explodes, and that explodes, and that explodes. 6, 12, 15. So 4 would be 1 recovered. 8 would be 2. 12 would be 3. If there was a 4th one shaken, it wouldn't be recovered even with that roll, because it would need a 16. Now the humans, they have a spirit of d6. So they roll and they get none recovered. So their one remains shaken. But they do go first. So they roll their d8 fighting and the d6 wild dice. They get an 8 there. 7, that's a 15. That beats the 6 parry of the goblins by a long, long way, and it's easily a raise. So we roll our 2d8 damage plus an additional d6. It's not a great roll. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But there are still 8 of them fighting. So it's 18. And we take away the 4 toughness of the goblins, which is 14. We look on our little chart there, and we see that 14 is 2 shaken, 2 wounded. So we remove 2 more, and 2 more shaken. So the goblins are really suffering here. So we then get to the end of the round. The humans still haven't lost enough to cross a threshold to make a morale roll, but the goblins have. They've lost more than a quarter. So they make a spirit roll, which is on a d6. And because they've only lost a quarter, there is no modifier to this. If they'd lost half or 3/4, there would be penalties to that roll. They get a 4, so they don't run away. Had it been just a 3, they would have run away. Now, when they've lost, if that roll had been with half lost, they would have been running away, and they would have to turn and run. And turning and running would then trigger a free attack from the knights, and so on. And so that's just 2 very, very quick turns for a couple of units. And once you get used to the rolling the appropriate dice and comparing to that table there, these turns actually play out very, very, very quickly. And obviously there's more to it. There's magic, there's different actions, there's shooting and different edges and so on. But that really is the basic principle.